The rain hammered against the glass windows of the luxury restaurant as Marcus Chen sat alone at his usual corner table, watching couples laugh and share intimate moments he'd never experienced. At 35, he was worth billions, commanded boardrooms with a single glance, and owned half the city's skyline. Yet tonight, like every other night for the past 3 years, he dined alone, surrounded by empty chairs that seemed to mock his success. What he didn't know was that across the street, a young woman named Emma was about to change his life forever and break his heart in ways money could never heal. If this story touches your heart, please show your support for Trillionaire in Love by hitting that like button, sharing this video, and subscribing for more inspiring stories that remind us love comes in many forms. Your engagement helps us reach more hearts that need healing. Emma Rodriguez pressed her face against the rain-soaked window of the small cafe where she worked double shifts, watching the wealthy patrons enter the upscale restaurant across the street. At 23, she knew that world wasn't meant for someone like her, someone who counted every penny, wore the same 3 outfits in rotation, and survived on leftover sandwiches from the cafe. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the loneliness seemed heavier than usual. Another late night, Emma called her manager, Sarah, as she locked up the register. "You should head home. That storm's getting worse." Emma nodded, gathering her thin jacket around her shoulders. Home was a studio apartment she shared with 2 roommates, where the heating barely worked and dinner was usually instant noodles. As she stepped into the rain, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. Marcus had just finished another solitary meal when he noticed a young woman stumble on the wet pavement outside. Without thinking, he rushed out into the storm, his expensive suit instantly soaked as he helped her to her feet. Their eyes met for the first time, and something shifted in the universe, 2 lonely souls recognizing each other across an impossible divide. "Are you hurt?" Marcus asked, his voice gentler than it had been in years. Emma stared at this stranger in his $1,000 suit, water dripping from his dark hair, genuine concern filling his eyes. "I'm fine," she whispered, but her twisted ankle told a different story. "Please let me help you. There's a medical clinic just around the corner." Something about his sincerity made Emma nod. As Marcus helped her into his car, she couldn't help but notice the luxury surrounding her. Leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent, technology she'd only seen in movies. But what struck her most was how carefully he adjusted the seat for her comfort, how he drove slowly despite the storm, asking repeatedly if she was okay. At the clinic, Marcus insisted on paying for her treatment. "It's nothing," he said when she protested, but to Emma, it was everything. No one had ever shown her such kindness, especially not someone who clearly lived in a different world. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed again and again, as if the universe was determined to weave their stories together. Marcus would find excuses to visit the cafe where Emma worked, ordering coffee he didn't need just to see her smile. Emma found herself looking forward to these visits, the way his presence made her feel seen and valued in a way she'd never experienced. Their first real conversation happened on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Marcus arrived just before closing time, finding Emma alone, cleaning tables with tears in her eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked, abandoning all pretense of casual interaction. Emma looked up, surprised by the genuine concern in his voice. "My landlord raised the rent again. I don't know how I'm going to manage 3 jobs and still afford a place to live." Marcus's heart clenched. In his world, money was just numbers on a screen, but for Emma, every dollar was survival. "There has to be something I can do to help." "Why?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why do you care about someone like me?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Because you're the first person in years who looks at me and sees more than a bank account. Because when you smile, it's genuine. Because you've reminded me what it feels like to be human." Their relationship blossomed slowly, carefully. Marcus learned to navigate Emma's pride. She wouldn't accept expensive gifts or lavish gestures, but she treasured the small things. The way he remembered she preferred tea over coffee. How he would walk her home after late shifts, never pushing for more than conversation. The book of poetry he gave her because he noticed her reading during breaks, but their different worlds created challenges neither had anticipated. The first major crisis came when Marcus's business associate, Victoria Sterling, discovered their relationship. "Really, Marcus," Victoria cornered him at a charity gala. "A waitress. Do you know what this will do to your reputation, to the company's image? Emma is worth more than anyone in this room." Marcus replied firmly, but the seeds of doubt were planted. The real test came when Emma met Marcus's social circle. He had invited her to a company dinner, spending hours assuring her she belonged there. Emma had saved for weeks to buy a simple black dress, practiced using the right forks, watched YouTube videos on proper etiquette. But nothing could have prepared her for the subtle cruelty of high society. The backhanded compliments, the questioning looks, the way conversation stopped when she approached. The breaking point came when Marcus's business partner's wife, Charlotte, made a seemingly innocent comment. "How refreshing to meet someone so authentic," Charlotte said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Marcus, darling, I'm sure Emma would be more comfortable at the staff table. After all, she must be used to serving rather than being served." Emma felt every eye in the room turn to her, felt the weight of their judgment pressing down like a physical force. Marcus immediately stepped in, his voice cold with anger. "Emma is my guest and will sit wherever she chooses." But the damage was done. Emma excused herself to the restroom, and Marcus found her 20 minutes later, crying in the lobby. "I don't belong here," she whispered. "I'll never belong in your world. You belong with me," Marcus said fiercely. "That's all that matters." But as weeks passed, the pressure mounted. Business associates questioned Marcus's judgment. Board members whispered about his distraction. The media began to take notice, painting Emma as a gold digger, Marcus as a fool. Emma watched the man she loved become stressed and withdrawn, saw how their relationship was affecting everything he'd worked to build. The crisis reached its peak when Marcus's biggest client threatened to pull their account unless he handled his personal situation more appropriately. That night, Emma made a decision that would shatter both their hearts. She began pulling away, making excuses not to see him, working extra shifts to avoid their usual meeting times. When Marcus confronted her, demanding to know what was wrong, Emma felt her heart breaking with every word she was about to say. "This isn't working, Marcus. We're too different. I don't belong in your world. Emma, please, we can figure this out together." "No," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "I can't keep pretending I'm something I'm not. When I'm with your friends, with your colleagues, I feel like I'm drowning, like I'm not good enough for basic human decency." It was then that she uttered the words that would haunt Marcus for months. "Charlotte was right. I don't even deserve to sit at the same table as you. I don't deserve the same dinner, the same respect, the same love. I'm just a poor girl who forgot her place." Marcus felt his world crumble. "That's not true. You deserve everything. You deserve the world. Your world doesn't think so." Emma replied quietly, and maybe they're right. She walked away that night, and Marcus let her go, too shocked by her words to fight back immediately. By the time he went to find her the next day, she had quit her job and moved away, leaving no forwarding address. For months, Marcus threw himself into work, but success felt hollow without Emma to share it with. He realized that in trying to protect his business image, he had failed to protect the woman he loved. He had let society's judgment poison the most genuine relationship of his life. The truth Emma had spoken, that she felt undeserving of basic respect and love because of her economic status, broke something fundamental inside him. He began to see his wealth not as an achievement, but as a barrier that had separated him from real human connection. He understood that Emma hadn't left because she didn't love him, but because she loved him enough to protect him from the judgment their relationship brought. Marcus spent the next 6 months using his resources differently. He quietly funded scholarships for working students like Emma. He changed his company's hiring practices to focus on merit over connections. He used his influence to support small businesses and working families. But none of it filled the Emma-shaped hole in his heart. Then, On a rainy evening exactly 1 year after they met, Marcus saw her again. She was walking out of a community college, books in her arms, a small smile on her face. She looked different, more confident, more at peace with herself. "Emma," he called out, his heart racing. She turned, and for a moment time stopped. "Marcus." They found themselves in the same cafe, where they'd spent so many afternoons talking. Emma had been taking business classes, working toward opening her own small restaurant. She looked stronger, more sure of herself. "I never stopped thinking about you," Marcus admitted. "About what you said that night, about not deserving dinner, not deserving respect. Emma, you deserve everything beautiful in this world. I know," she said softly. "It took me a while to learn that, but I know now. My worth isn't determined by my bank account or what others think of me. I was wrong to let them make you feel small. I should have fought harder for us." Emma reached across the table, taking his hand. "We both made mistakes. I ran instead of fighting. You cared more about their approval than protecting what we had. But maybe we needed that time apart to grow." "Can we try again?" Marcus asked, his voice vulnerable in a way that reminded Emma why she'd fallen in love with him. "Only if you promise me something," Emma said. "Promise me you'll never again let anyone make me feel like I don't belong at your table. Promise me you'll stand up for us even when it's difficult." "I promise," Marcus said without hesitation, "and I promise you'll never have to face that alone again." Their second chance wasn't easy. They faced continued judgment from some of Marcus's associates, skepticism from Emma's friends who worried he'd hurt her again. But this time, they faced it together. Marcus learned to use his privilege to lift others up rather than to separate himself from them. Emma learned that her value wasn't determined by others' opinions, but by her own self-worth. 6 months later, Marcus proposed. Not in a fancy restaurant or exotic location, but in the small cafe where they'd first really talked, surrounded by the community that had watched their love story unfold. When Emma said yes, the entire cafe erupted in cheers. At their wedding, Marcus's speech brought tears to every eye. "Emma taught me that love isn't about what you can afford to give someone, but what you're willing to sacrifice for their happiness. She taught me that dignity isn't about wealth, but about how you treat others. Most importantly, she taught me that everyone deserves a seat at the table of life, respect, love, and basic human kindness." Emma's response was equally moving. "Marcus showed me that I didn't need to make myself smaller to fit into someone else's world. Instead, he expanded his world to make room for all of me. True love doesn't ask you to change who you are. It celebrates who you're becoming." Today, Marcus and Emma run a foundation together, supporting working students and providing scholarships for those who dream of education but lack resources. Their love story became a beacon of hope for others who felt divided by economic circumstances, proving that when two people truly love each other, they can bridge any gap society tries to create between them. The poor girl who once believed she didn't deserve dinner now hosts community meals every month, ensuring that no one in their neighborhood goes hungry. The lonely CEO who once dined alone now knows that the richest moments in life are the simplest ones, sharing a meal with someone you love, regardless of what that meal costs or where you eat it. Their story reminds us that love doesn't recognize economic boundaries, and that every person, regardless of their circumstances, deserves respect, dignity, and a place at life's table. Sometimes the most profound love stories aren't about finding someone in your own world, but about two people brave enough to create a new world together. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to remember their worth isn't measured by their wallet. Like this video if you believe love conquers all barriers. Comment below with your thoughts on Marcus and Emma's journey, and subscribe to Trillionaire in Love for more stories that celebrate the power of authentic love. Your support helps us continue sharing tales that remind us of our shared humanity. Until next time, remember, you deserve a seat at every table life offers.